Hi, everybody. We have with us Tim. Meet Tim Porter.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you, and it's good to be on the show. I guess I'll start with a little bit about myself. I've been in the success education business, if you will, for going back into the mid 80s. And I had a chance to work for a company called Success Education Training. And I started out in the recording seminars, and I got to travel around. I worked with the guys, and I got to travel around basically for 3.5 years, recording literally thousands of hours of seminars. So I just sat there and took all this information in. One of the guys they were mentoring at the time was Dan Kennedy. Some of you will know Dan, some of you won't, but he's a very successful marketing coach out there. And back in the 80s, Dan Kennedy and my mentors, they were selling coaching, but back then it was called management practices. And what they did was they were selling to chiropractors, and they sold, Dan Kennedy sold 600 coaching packages at $30,000 a piece back in 82, 83, and 84. Dan was very young back then, so he used to have to dye his hair gray just so when he would go in, people would take him serious. But Dan is, if you know him and see him, he's very tough, there's no BS with Dan. So I got to travel with these guys. And then after I left that, what happened is I had a marriage, broke up, moved to New England. In New England, I said, well, I've been in all these seminars. There's not any seminar recording gigs up here, so I'll start doing sales. I started applying what I learned and sat down with the owner of an advertising agency and said, Mike, why don't you do this? And he quadrupled his sales just off of one thing. So that sort of launched me into being a product of the product, if you will, for success education.
Tim, it is great to meet you. I'm Dan, and Ivy brought you on here. So I will be learning about you as our audience will be learning about you for the first time. And I already noticed something that we have in common. So I used to work for Tony Robbins, and I helped him sell his seminars and help sell his product lines. And I know you know who Tony Robbins is. He probably was coming up in a similar time period to
Yep.
Dan Kennedy,
Yep.
obviously in different focuses. Tony was more on just like life stuff, and Dan was more on the marketing sales stuff. But no, I'm very familiar with Dan Kennedy. I used to have some of his stuff, so probably stuff that you helped him record or put together, which is really cool. And it sounds like you learned a little bit through osmosis. Is that correct? It's almost like you're not necessarily the audience, but you can't help take stuff in, and it sinks in and starts to take root because you
Yeah.
keep hearing it over and over and over. Tell us about that.
Well, it just phenomenal just to travel with somebody like Dan Kennedy, to work with him back then. He owned a company called General Cassette, which was like a little miniature Nightingale Conan. And so I got to sit with Dan, and I got to go in and record video commercials for him that he was putting up on infomercials at the time, where he was marketing them back then. So just being around people like that, you cannot help when you get to fly with them, when you're traveling with them, when you're riding to the seminars, when you're staying in the same hotel. You just learn from them, and you just watch how they do business, and it's pretty impressive. And you want to strive, so you want to become like them. So you just pick up what they're doing.
I'll just tell you what my experience was, which I think a lot of people can learn from. And I'm curious if you had the same experience, which is I think for a person who doesn't have access behind the curtain, right, to see what life is like when you're not on stage or not listening to their voice on a recording, they tend to think these people are perfect, right? They like literally idolize them. Some people like make them cult-like figures.
Mm-hmm.
My experience, again, with respect to whoever I've had affiliations with, is to say, no, they're just like you and I, right? Like they're people with their own struggles, and they still have to, as they say, put their pants on one leg at a time, and they still have to do all the areas of life and focus on it in the same way we do. It doesn't suddenly become easier once you become popular or rich in some way.
Right.
What's been your experience of that, Tim?
I've seen that. And on the positive side, I've been at like breakfast meetings where we're at a breakfast table, and somebody comes up to the table and he's wearing a tie, and nobody else at the table is wearing a tie. And he goes, "Oh, hey, I thought we were wearing a tie." And they go, "No, we're a little casual this morning." And so this guy, they were like Southern gentlemen. So this guy went back to his room and took his tie off in his room, and then came back to the table to eat. Just having those kind of principles. So they kind of lived that out in the real world. So uh, I really didn't see too much, nothing negative. They didn't. I've seen people that talk down to their customers that are like speakers. I've been around a lot of speakers, and I've seen people that say one thing on stage and they do something different on stage. They treat people differently off stage. These guys didn't. They treated everybody the same.
And that's great to hear. And for anyone listening to my end, I would just want to clarify, I'm not saying anything negative. I'm just saying that I think many people who didn't have that access would tend to think things in their life were like magic, right? Or just like it was easy for them. And my realization, which I think has been important, I've lived with it a long time, is that it doesn't matter how much money you have. Jeff Bezos, who's probably the richest man in the world still, he still has the same daily things that we do, right? Like he still has to eat and he still has to try to maintain good shape and he still has to manage his relationships as he just got divorced. There's everyone's dealing with life. It
Right.
just might be a fancier version of life for them than it is for us. So that was kind of my takeaway, is like, grass is not always greener. It might be better grass, but it's
Right.
not always greener grass. So the purpose of Ivy and the CIA and doing this podcast is to help our listeners to learn from different people and varying backgrounds, and they're going to connect to different things. And with all one outcome, our overarching principle is we want people to live their best life. And it becomes repetitive if all you do is just stay in your echo chamber and listen to the same voices telling you the same thing over and over. So we're giving them access to different people from different backgrounds and experiences, because they may hear you say something and it might be the same thing someone else says, but it means something different. And it leads them to take some action or do something different. So in coaching people, Ivy and I are both coaches. This is probably one of the first questions I ask. And this is the first question I'm going to ask you, which is, if I was a genie and could grant you one wish, what would be your wish and why that wish?
I would wish for 100 more wishes. And the reason why is because then I could be the genie and grant wishes to other people. And it would almost like being, let's say, rather than being Luke Skywalker or Han Solo, it'd be like I'd want to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. I would want to be like the Mr. Miyagi training people. So that's my wish. I would want 100 more wishes, and then I would want to use them intelligently, carefully, and sparingly, and for fun.
And that's an amazing answer. And that's the intelligent person answer. But with that answer, I'm going to challenge you to, I'm going to make up a new rule right now, which is to say, while that's the best answer to give, I want you to give an answer that could inspire someone. Maybe it's like something you say, I always wanted to like have that or be that or pursue that, but maybe I didn't try because I thought it was outside of my reach. But a genie could grant you that wish, and now it's within your reach. What's that thing that maybe someone goes, oh,
Okay,
that's how I feel
I'll answer
too.
that. I have a trouble with the shortcut because I would want to go earn it or make it happen. But it would be to write a song that gets put in a movie and that wins the Oscar, where I could stand on stage and say, hey, several years ago, I heard I was watching the Oscars and somebody said they were motivated to write a song and win the Oscar. And I said, hey, why don't I do that? And I did that.
Yes, I wanted to just say that's a really inspiring wish, and I hope that happens. My question is, if you had a time machine and you could visit your younger self and offer advice, what would it be?
It would be two things. One is I had my Uncle Jimmy was a World War II veteran. He drove the landing crafts at Iwo Jima and Guadalcanal, so he saw a whole lot of stuff in combat, and he ended up becoming an alcoholic, but he was like the happy drunk. And sometimes you just sit there and listen to him tell stories. But he sat me down one time and he did this, and he said, Timmy, this, and this. And everything he said, I knew he said it at the time was right, and it was the best advice I ever heard. But being young, I didn't take that advice. And if I would have gone back, I would have taken the advice that he had given me. And that would be to really work hard, honor roll, go to college, graduate college, and just really pursue excellence at a high level, and just keep your life right, and don't party and do all the fun stuff, or don't mess yourself up. And it was really good advice, and he spoke to the heart. So I would have sat down and wrote that down and followed up on that.
So this next question, it has implication that you're a reader. Not everybody's a reader. And I want to give you some extra room here because I listen to audiobooks, right? So I could still consider myself a reader, even though I do things on audiobooks. So if, not to make a sour note of this, but let's just say you were in prison and they said, you're only going to have one book and you're in a life sentence. So you only have one book the rest of your time in prison. What would be that book and why?
I would choose the Bible just because it's so full of its great stories. It's obviously spiritual and inspiration, and it shows the highs that you can achieve, and it shows the depths that you can achieve. Joseph in prison, no future, no hope, and he gets out and he becomes second in command. So there's always, it might be an impossible situation, but there's always possibilities, especially when God's involved. So it would be the Bible.
What an awesome answer. I agree with you about that. And just because I see that there's a lot of life principles from the Bible, if you apply it to your life, can make a very, very good life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
things to do and things not to do.
Mm-hmm. My question is this: what habit or belief has helped you most of your life?
I would say it's learned from everybody. And I'll give you two examples. One, I'm a musician and I study musicians. I study what goes in behind the scenes, what these guys do to achieve it. My main instrument is bass guitar, so I study a lot of the bass guitar players. Just so happens like 5 or 6 of them have sold probably 200 million albums or more combined. If you stack these guys, put these guys in a room and say, okay, how many albums have your band sold? And there's a guitar player. He passed away when he was 25. His name was Randy Rhoads. If you ever heard Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train, that's Randy Rhoads. And what Randy did was, it didn't matter where he was on tour, any city he went to, if he was in your city, he was in my city, or any city, he would look up a local guitar player and he would go take a lesson from that guy. Didn't matter if he was better than him or not. He would learn from anybody and everybody. And I've been around a lot of coaches, and that has served me well. Like when I met Ivy, I looked and I said, this is somebody that she's got it. She's going to be a great coach, and she's a great coach. I can learn from her. So I'm actually working with Ivy just on the mindset, breaking that. I can learn, even though I've been in success for studying success principles, I can learn from somebody like Ivy. You can learn from anybody. And I would just say, just taking that, if you sit down and you look for the good, you can learn from anybody. And you can learn some things that will surprise you what you learn.
A good segue in that is sometimes people give you advice and you think, ooh, I don't know if that's good advice. Or sometimes you actually take their advice and it doesn't turn out to be good. So in your years of being in your profession, have there been things you hear people recommend or give advice on and you're like, people should not be listening to that. That's not good advice?
Yeah, on two ends, I'd have to think on right up front. I see a lot of people, they'll take a class and get certified in this one or that one or this or that, and then it's take my course, take my program. Hey, you meet me, you need to take my 1, 2, 3, do this, that, and the other thing program. So they'll instantly, doesn't matter what your needs are, where you're at, or what you want. They'll sell you what they're selling.
I want a clarification on that. Are you saying that because courses tend to be one size fits all, because that's the nature of them, right? You have to appeal to a broad audience if you want to sell a bunch. That are you recommending instead of that to get personal instruction or work with somebody as an individual?
Always get personal instruction. If you get a personal coach, that is going to serve you more and better than just about anything that you can do. One is it's going to cost you money. 2, if you don't do what they say, you're going to be, oh crap, I didn't do this. I got to call John, and I'm in for it. And you don't want to have that conversation where he's not going to let you off the hook. You have to be accountable. And when you're not accountable, they make you accountable. And if you have a good coach, they'll kick your butt and not sugarcoat it. The good ones. I mean, they'll pin your fanny to the wall and why? How come you didn't do that? You said you were going to do that. And it's to make you better. It's to draw out of you what's in you. So they'll push you harder than you'll push yourself.
What's amazing is to be surrounded by some really amazing coaches that it's inspire me to level up. And so my question to follow up is, what person or people has had the greatest impact on your life and why?
I'll say Bruce Lee. And the reason why is when I was a kid, I grew up with 4 older brothers. And for those of you who are old enough to know, there used to be a show called Leave It to Beaver on TV. And in the show, the character was, he had an older brother, and his older brother had a friend, and the friend was Eddie Haskell, and Eddie was always giving him the business, like the big brothers do to the little brothers. And I grew up with the equivalent of 4 Eddie Haskells because all my brothers had their friends, and them and all their friends gave me the business. And so one of my brothers, love him, my favorite, he was my nemesis. And so we'd always fight, and he would always challenge me. And if I was I always got the business. I got more of the business from him. So I saw Bruce Lee on TV, and he did that famous speech where he says, "Be water, my friend. Water can flow or it can crash." So as a kid, I'm watching Bruce Lee, and I'm going, and I'm just like, it changed my life. And I'm going, I can use that on Larry. And just the philosophy, and then what I took from that changed my whole thinking is I can learn so much from the Asian culture. There's so much awesomeness that they have to offer. So that got me in, and then Bruce Lee, the fighting and the movies, and it was really cool because all the kids, you'd go down to the theater to watch a Bruce Lee movie, and there would be the white kids, there'd be the black kids, Hispanic, the Indians, the Japanese, the Chinese, and we all wanted to be Chinese. So all the kids there, we all wanted to be Bruce Lee, and it was just how he lived his life and just the excellence and the control that he had. So that changed, and then when I coach, it's like the Tao Jeet Kune Do is take what's useful and throw away the rest. And so if I was training Ivy to fight, I'd train her different than I was training Dan. If Bruce Lee was training us, he'd train us all different. He'd train Kareem Abdul-Jabbar different than he would train Dan Inosanto or James Colbert. So it's what tools do you have? What can you do with those tools? And how can you apply that to your situation and what you need to do in the moment?
I believe it was Bruce Lee, and I'll paraphrase what he said, that was don't learn 10,000 moves, but practice the one move 10,000 times, right? Like to master it. So that's a good segue into a question for yourself. Is there a habit that you have, something you maybe do on a daily basis, or it's a routine for you now, that you feel like this habit has had a great impact on my life?
So there's a couple of them, but I would just say one is the meditation, just quieting down, taking some time just to quiet down and not think of anything, and just to shut it down for a while is huge. And then the other habit is not to give up, to no matter what you're facing, is to set your goals and do something every day that can move the needle just one tick forward towards your goals. Like one something that I learned, and it was fantastic, was you should take your age, whatever age you are, and then turn that into minutes. And that's how many so if you're 39, take 39 minutes a day and work on your life goals. If you're 55, take 55 minutes a day and work on your life goals. Just what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish in your life before everything's over and everything is said and done? What is your life's mission, your purpose? Why are you here? What are you striving for? And then turn that into the minutes. If you're 16, it would be 16 minutes. So and I do that.
That is very inspiring. Is this, what is your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
The biggest failure would be I had a handshake deal with a business partner, and it was like, okay, we're going to do this, and I started it. It was my baby, and I saw this guy had potential and talent, and I say I can go a lot farther with him than I can do it on myself. And so we partnered up, and then we made a handshake, and it didn't turn out the way I thought, and it cost me millions. It cost a lot of money. So I just learned on a handshake, and I'll go back to my mentors, and this is for everybody listening. These guys were like Southern gentlemen, and the way somebody like Dan Kennedy, and I bet you even somebody like Tony Robbins, the way they choose their business partner is really simple. There's one question: is could I trust this guy driving across the country in a car with my wife? And if I can trust this guy and not have one thing to worry about, knowing that he's not going to hit on her or anything like that, then I can go into business with the guy. And this guy I had the handshake deal with couldn't do that, but I went ahead and did it. So it's just to trust. It's not to do that again, if you will. So that's my biggest failure.
If I could somehow get you that money right now, right, and I could give it to you, and I said, okay, now that money that you lost in that bad deal, I gave it back to you. What would you use the money for now in your life?
I would use right off the bat. It is obviously give, and then I would take 10% of it for education and coaching. I'd go out and hire. So if it was $1 million, it'd be $100,000. I'd go and invest in coaching. I'd probably take another 100,000, 200,000, maybe 300,000 in guitars, music equipment, and then invest, buy some assets, and set it up so I could live off of some of it and have fun. I'd spend it. So I divide it up. Like T. Harbecker teaches the account. Some don't know if you're familiar with him, but the JAR system is you have a fun account, you have it'd be my guitar account. Then you obviously want to take care of your taxes. You want to have your giving. You want to have your education, and then what you want to live on. So I would just be disciplined in that. That's what I would do, and have a lot of fun.
What is the very best advice you can share about living your best life with our audience?
Trust your intuition. That first little inkling that you would have, that little bing, that little. If something feels right, it's good. If it doesn't, if there's anything that doesn't feel right, it's like I think there's a scripture in the Bible: let the peace act as umpire. And so, what does an umpire do? If you have peace about something, the umpire says you're safe. If you don't have peace, you're out. So just follow that, and don't discard it. It's like people will just say, "Yeah, I know I should have. I kind of felt that way, and I should have done that, but you don't want to do that."
Obviously, we've asked you a series of questions. Some people think, I don't know where they're going with this. They're kind of all over the map. So there's probably a question that we should have asked you that we didn't ask you. What was that question that you thought, oh, why didn't they ask me that one?
I would say, like, what's one of the best things that you've ever heard your mentor say that you haven't heard too many other people say? And what this guy would do is, if you came up to me, Dan, if you came up to me and said, "Hey, Tim, what would you do if I was you?" And so if somebody came up to my mentor, his name was James, and said, "James, what would you do? What would you do if you were me?" He would look at you and he'd go, "I wouldn't be you for but about 3 seconds, and then I would change." So it would be whatever situation you're in, the giants, the dragons, the whatever it is that you're facing, look at it, and if you've been struggling with that, change like that. Tony Robbins teaches you the change happens in a decision, in a split second. So he would say, "I wouldn't be you for but about 3 seconds, and then I would change."
I am curious though, when you say it that way, could that have any implication that it's like, I would only be you for a few seconds? Like some way there's that everybody should change?
This guy wouldn't sugarcoat anything. If you're a knucklehead and you're doing something dumb and you should be reading and you're not reading, or you're overweight and you should be working out, or whatever, stop that, change. And if you're not making money, and for whatever reason you're not making money, get to work and make money. So it would be whatever, it would just, whatever it is, and it would be tough. It would be real tough love. And for some people, something like that could really be hard. But to me, I've seen it and I've applied it to myself, and I've shared it with people when they say, "Hey, what would you do?" And then you'd see some people change, some people don't. But the ones that change, it makes a difference, all the difference.
Basically, you're saying, why wait, right? If you're going to do something, do it now. Like, just do it, like Nike says. Just get it done, because,
because it's, clean why keep, if you have a big stew, and you're eating it, and you got a salt shaker, and you're just pouring salt in it while you're eating it, you go, "God, this is salty." And you're sitting there pouring the salt in the stew while you're eating. "God, this is really salty." Stop pouring the salt in. Change. You just change quick and make it stick.
That's a good one. What's the biggest surprise you've had in the last few months, and why?
I would say the the biggest surprise is where everybody, another thing that my mentors taught me is do the opposite of what the crowd is doing. And so if everybody's saying 2020 sucks, 2020 has been a great year. And the biggest surprise is I made a change and hired a coach again a couple months ago, and that's how I met Ivy, and I made an investment, long-term investment, and it surprised me, but it hasn't surprised me. It's like just being at the right time. So is when you do good things will happen. When you expect good things will happen. So if you're not expecting good things, start expecting good things. And if you're not doing good things, start doing good things.
I agree with you about that. I'm a big believer that everything matters and everything counts. And when you talk about taking action and do it now, like that motto of just do it, makes me think of, even if that action is just a small action, it makes a huge difference and it compounds over time.
Right.
Great ideas that we learn, that we apply, we can learn from everybody. And some of them will resonate and some of them will just be that one day where it clicks. And when you take the action, all kinds of things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just even from the biblical principle, you do reap what you sow. I really believe that. I've seen that in my life.
Tim, what are the services right now that you currently provide that our listeners could benefit from? Like, is there a place that they would go and then could hire you or inquire about what you do?
Just email me, tim@demogears.com. And I can do targeted specialized lead generation. I can get you a lot business to business leads. I can get you pretty much like every real estate office in California, all the contact information, or I can get you any association, any professional sports team, or all the professional sports teams if you want to market to them. All of the financial planners. I'm working with somebody right now on tourism. So we've got something we're going to go after people that have been hit hard with because of the COVID and tourism. So we're reaching out to people in that industry with something, and temporary, whatever. I can get you a ton of leads. I can do one-on-one coaching, and if anybody would like that, just reach out to me and I'll get back to you.
If you were to make a call out to the ideal target audience for you, who are they?
Anybody that is struggling a little bit to get more sales, to automate if they're not quite automated yet, and they don't have their CRM, contact customer relationship management system in place, I can help them with that. So just managing, it's really setting up systems for generating more sales, getting more sales. If you want more sales, I can help you get more sales.
Tim, thank you again. We really appreciate your time, and you're here for a reason. As we know, every person has a unique background and story. So thank you for sharing yours today. I'm sure there'll be people out there who will hear your story. They'll connect with parts of it, and it'll inspire them to hopefully take some action and take a step towards living their best life. So we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I share just one thing in closing real quick? I would encourage anybody listening also to reach out to Ivy and Dan as well, simply because of what they bring to the table and who they are and the message that they have. So reach out to them too.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Tim.